I just recently wrapped up my time with Donkey Kong Bonanza, and good golly, did I have myself a barrel blast. It's been decades since Nintendo attempted another 3D DK, and not only does this new entry pay respects to the entire 40-year history, it also adds new layers of gameplay that redefine not only what makes a DK game, but also redefines what a 3D platformer can be. It's one of the craziest, most chaotic games I have played in a while, but at the same time, it's one of the most polished games I have played. Just leave it to Nintendo. This is easily one of their best. Except for that Zebra Bonanza. I'd leave the speeding to Sonic. Speaking of, what kind of Sonic fan would I be if I didn't make this completely unrelated topic all about the blue blur? Well, I'm not. I'm making this about Red Sonic. As often as Sega has been inspired by Nintendo through the years, I think they need to take a few notes from Donkey Kong Bonanza and make a brand new game starring Knuckles the Echidna. Now, if you're a longtime viewer of my channel, you know I have been hollering for another Knuckles game for a long time now, and it's not because I feel like his old 32X game needs a follow-up. I have said many times I want a more open world game with a little more focus on exploration and combat. And yes, I know they kinda gave us that with the DLC in Sonic Frontiers, but you know, that was what it was. And that's not to take away from the accomplishments of the Great Ape. There are a lot of elements in Bonanza that make it a uniquely Donkey Kong experience. But I have seen some other accounts, mostly focused on DK, talking about how they have been craving a new Donkey Kong game for a long time, and when they play other titles, they always think to themselves, man, I wish this was a Donkey Kong game. But now they finally have a new DK experience all for them, and that got me thinking. I imagine a lot of fans of a lot of different franchises have similar feelings when playing different games, but thinking about some of their favorite characters. So of course, I was thinking about Knuckles a lot of the time while I was playing Bonanza. And I know I'm not the only Knuckles fan out there who had that thought, and that's all thanks to that destructible terrain. If you've been living under a rock, well, you won't be for long because a monkey's gonna dig you up and show you the ridiculously satisfying terrain destruction that is the central draw of this new DK game. Now, this isn't the first title to introduce this particular idea, but this is Nintendo at the wheel here, and they've utilized it brilliantly in a 3D platformer, using different types of terrain to create interesting challenges and puzzles, as well as different levels of durability, giving you an incentive to tinker with the skill tree that unlocks the more you collect bananas. But while all that's good and fine, it all works together because it's just so satisfying to smash everything in sight. So of course, this is the first and most obvious thing Sega should steal if they wanted to make a Knuckles game. The boy is known for his power, he's known for digging, he's known for treasure hunting. You can see how that would work in a game where you're running around in the ground and punching all kinds of stuff and grabbing knickknacks, and yeah, it just works fine. And it's not like the Sonic series hasn't dabbled with a bit of digging here and there. I'm thinking specifically of Knuckles' drill attacks or the drill wisp, and outside of that, this could be a callback to one of the earlier and often overlooked perks of the Echidna, punching through walls and rubble that are impenetrable to the fox and hedgehog. That said, I can't see the character of Knuckles being as mindlessly reckless as Donkey Kong. For the ape, it makes sense for him to just go, well, ape, and punch everything in sight to get to his beloved bananas. But as headstrong as Knuckles can be, his actions are at least a little bit more considered. So if this game were to take place on Angel Island, I couldn't see Knuckles going ham on a bunch of ancient relics pertaining to his people and his culture. Regardless, this mechanic is still something worth considering simply for the satisfaction of it. But character motivations aside, talking strictly mechanics here, Knuckles would be a great fit in the underground worlds of Bonanza, and in some ways might even improve it. Obviously, all of that comes down to the developers, but hear me out here. The Bonanza forms in the game are largely there to unlock different means of traversal. You gotta hold down the shoulder buttons once you have enough gold energy to activate one of these, beautiful forms, which in turn will let you punch harder, or run faster, or even glide. But with a character like Knuckles, you don't need to do any of those extra steps. If you dropped him in the game, he'd move a bit faster than DK, hopefully without the slippiness of the zebra, because seriously, it sucks. Or just jump straight into a glide without ever needing to bang his chest. No transformation, no time limit, no little singing girl. I know that doesn't seem like a huge change, but when you play this game enough and you're going around digging for the rest of the bananas and fossils and stuff like that, just removing those little barriers here and there does make a difference. And while this would be a separate experience from your standard Sonic fare, Knuckles still would provide a little extra game flow to this particular experience. And heck, depending on who you're arguing with, you could even potentially give him that charged punch without ever needing to turn his dreadlocks into bananas. I'm not here to debate which character is stronger than the other. That's not the point. The priority here is simply the mechanics, and as fun as Donkey Kong is to play, and make no mistake, he is very damn fun to play, Knuckles in the right hands, specifically these developers, could ever so slightly improve that experience. And that alone is a great jumping off point to build a new game based on the character. And yes, I said game, not campaign, and not extra character. Sure, you could go back to the side-scrolling titles and use that strength to unlock unique paths to utilize the climbing and gliding. Heck, you could even do another adventure-style game and just really go ham with Knuckles' campaign. That's what inspired all of this conversation to begin with, because Sega has utilized Knuckles quite well in the past, but I've always felt he deserved more, and this is where I feel Sega needs to be a little bit more courageous with the Sonic cast. I think it's time to give these guys their own games. Push the mechanics and environment design beyond simply alternate paths or puzzles designed for specific characters, because as much as I love the idea of the Final Horizons DLC, they made Knuckles the worst character to play. Thank God they patched that glide. I mean, I don't know how you make this little dude feel like an out-of-control semi on an icy road. He's in the sky. There's not even a road there. It's just air. In an open world, combat focused title, they somehow made the little red guy who focuses on combat. I'm sorry, gets me heated. I don't know how you screw that up, but I know a large part of it is because they did not have the time or budget to polish the, sorry. Look, even if they had the time to polish up Sonic Frontiers, I mean, you could even look at a tighter, smaller experience like Sonic Dream Team, you still come across the problem with this shared environment. You're gonna have to homogenize certain skill sets. And since this all has to largely be focused around Sonic, that means every character has to grind, boost, and homing attack, which to me just feels weird if it's not Sonic or Shadow doing those things. And even years after we've had advanced beyond the power of the Dreamcast, we have somehow further limited the ability of Knuckles by only giving him certain walls to climb. That's crazy. You begin to wonder why they even bothered making separate characters at all. If the only difference they make is just a single move or two, then just have one character do all of those moves. That's not to say that multiple characters in a game are a bad idea. There are good examples of a nice balance, as the best of 2D Sonic games have proven. But when you bloat out the cast, you ironically can limit the playstyles pretty severely or end up with modes that are clearly weaker than the others. Sorry, Big.
Fuck this clown.
Yeah, I know Sonic Adventure has gotten a lot of crap about this over the years. I still love that game, but I'm actually thinking of another example of this bloat, and interestingly enough, it's another Donkey Kong title.
Here we go.
Donkey Kong 64 probably gets a little more hate than it deserves, but it's hard to argue that it does get a bit tedious, forcing you to find a barrel to swap characters simply to grab specific collectibles or activate a silly power, when really, if you just took one ape and slapped them into different barrels that gave you different results, all of this would have been so much better if it was just condensed into one character. How's it going, Banjo?
I'm Banjo.
Rare, where did you go wrong? When you get to those extremes, just to expand your cast, all you're really doing is creating more steps to get things done, and at that point, you're just wasting the time of your player. And as much as I love Sonic Adventure, when you're swapping characters just to go fishing, at some point you gotta ask yourself, what are we even doing here? Again, I really love that game, and Sonic Adventure 2 tackled that bloat in its own unique fashion, and Sonic Frontiers and Sonic Dream Dream Team were brave enough to expand the 3D cast again, and ultimately I am thankful for that. But again, I'm not super impressed with the way they handled things. I think Sonic Frontiers specifically is at its best when it's just focused on Sonic, even when he's doing things that I feel could be better handled by one of his buddies. Tails should be solving puzzles, and Knuckles should be climbing titans and punching them in the face. But if I had to make the choice between swapping between characters to get these things done or just using Sonic, well, I'm going to pick Sonic over backtracking. Again, there are exceptions, especially in the Sonic series, but as the scope expands and new ideas flourish, I do believe the ultimate goal should be not packing in as many characters as you can into one game, but building a whole game around one character. I love Mario, but I also love that a Donkey Kong game exists and it feels like it's filled with challenges that only DK can handle. I don't have to call a plumber for this job, I have to call Gorilla. And I think it's about time we did something similar for the Sonic cast. Yes, that is a far more expensive option, and while Sega isn't a small company, they certainly don't have Nintendo money. Regardless, Knuckles isn't an obscure character. And I mean no disrespect to DK here, he's one of the most important characters in all of gaming, but if this monkey can get King of Swing and Barrel Blast, certainly Sega can risk another Knuckles title. Shadow Generations was a smart and safe testing ground for this particular idea. They attached a smaller game to a remastered Sonic title, starring the second most popular character of the franchise, timed with his movie premiere, and yeah, let's be real, it's not like Shadow's moveset's all that different from Sonic's. Yeah, I know the Doom stuff is there, but if you threw Wisps in, it's basically the same thing. Regardless, I do think that was a smart step in this particular direction. Now, all of that said, I also know Sonic fans get a little bit touchy when it comes to Sonic copying anything Nintendo does, and it's not like they have stopped doing that, but they've been a little bit more subtle about this, to the point where Sonic fans debate with each other whether or not Sonic is actually copying Mario, and at least in my opinion, they're doing a pretty decent job, if that's a debate to be had at all. The open zone concept and the overall tone of Sonic Frontiers was clearly inspired by the popularity of Breath of the Wild, and a smaller campaign being attached to a remaster is certainly inspired by Bowser's Fury. But unlike Sonic Colors or Sonic Lost World, with these newer titles, I am seeing Sonic redefining his place in 3D space, and the success of Shadow Generations should hopefully serve as inspiration to take things a bit further. If I was Sega, I'd imagine that Final Horizons DLC was there to play around with the idea of another adventure-style game, and if they do, I really hope they fine-tune Knuckles. Maybe make his campaign a little bit more focused on collectathon stuff, just make it a little less mindless, like instead of just playing Marco Polo with jewels, he instead has challenges that require him to traverse and punch his way through an environment in a way only he can. At the very least, get rid of that obnoxious beeping radar and have something manual like Bananza's clap move. I'm just imagining Pumpkin Hill with a mixture of Knuckles and DK movesets. That sounds like a lot of fun. And giant levels like Rouge's Mad Space would be a lot better if there were actually things to do in there besides hunting down emerald pieces. They have a lot of creative ideas, they just gotta take them a little bit further. And if they don't do an adventures game and instead do another project like Sonic X Shadow Generations, then I highly recommend they do Sonic X Knuckles, a Sonic and Knuckles Unleashed. I'm not a big fan of the Werehog, but that doesn't mean I feel they should throw out those mechanics simply because it got a lot of backlash. I would go back and improve upon that, and I would use Knuckles to do so. Use his campaign to play around with Werehog and Sonic physics merged together. Something slower than Sonic, but faster than the Werehog, with a lot less brass instruments. I'm not really pitching anything new here, I'm just taking elements from other games I've played, but that's okay. Inspiration is not a terrible thing. We went from Doom clones to the FPS genre, and Nintendo is kinda great at elevating this industry. Sega will always take notes from the House of the Plumber, because they always have, but I hope they learn the right lessons and see some of these ideas not as things to clone, and maybe not even things to improve upon, because let's be real, it's really hard hard to top the Nintendo polish, and when you copy something too closely, you just end up looking like a lesser version of whatever you're trying to clone, and that in turn just makes people want to go play the original thing instead. But that doesn't mean they can't take these ideas and take it in their own direction. That's how Sonic started off, and heck, that's what they're doing now with Shadow Generations. It's okay to crib some ideas as long as you do your own thing, and there is a long legacy of Sonic to define what that particular thing is. Because if you just straight up plagiarize something, well, that's how you get Sonic Lost World, and we don't need another one of those. But if nothing else, what I would love Sega to take away from Donkey Kong Bonanza, because you know they are researching that game, is not so much the level layouts or even the mechanics, but the simple fact that Bonanza is an amazing celebration of the legacy of the Donkey Kong series, while showing there is still plenty of room to grow and evolve. This is not the first time Donkey Kong fell out of relevancy for a long time, only to have a drastic reinvention that you can't help but pay attention to. Now, to be fair, Knuckles does not have the same gaming legacy as the monkey, and yes, I know he's an ape, but Nintendo calls him a donkey, so who cares? Nothing makes sense. So yeah, you really only have his unique campaigns from Sonic games or Knuckles Chaotix to pull from. But here's the last thing I will recommend Sega does for this character. Show that Knuckles is your character, and pull from everything in the history of Knuckles. Because if you can just step outside of the gaming sphere, you'll see that they have done a lot with this character. Yeah, we're going there, baby. Time to talk about the comics. There is so much history built up for this character that people are desperate to explore, be it the fans or the creators. Yeah, I know, Ken Penders wrote a lot of stuff, and there's so much self-insert cringe or boring fluff to slog through, but the man did have some solid ideas worth expanding upon. Otherwise, that Sonic Chronicles lawsuit would have never happened. And heck, Ian Flynn liked some of his ideas and improved upon them. It's easy to hate on the guy, but I still love Enerjack and Julie Sue and the Dark Brotherhood, and yeah, I'd like to see Shade brought back, or the Nocturnus clan. All of that stuff is worth digging into. Oh, what's that Sonic fan frantically typing away in the comments? Ken Penders technically owns some of these characters and the publishing rights, and Sega doesn't want to deal with any more legal drama, and the Western stuff isn't canon, blah, 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 blah. Well, I say it's time to suck it up, Sega. Work something out with Ken. The guy is not invincible. The poor guy was on welfare when he started that lawsuit. He's just trying to place his name in some kind of legacy. We all tend to do that when we get a bit older. He's just, kind of weird about it. Spend a little money just to lay claim to your properties and get things back under one umbrella. Ken aside, Fleetway is so horribly underappreciated, and you could get so much wild inspiration from that lore alone. There's a lot of crazy stuff that, yeah, the source material ain't that great, but you get the right writers involved and they can spin it into something special. Ian Flynn proved that, the movies prove that. It's not that hard, probably not that expensive. Sort it out. I end so many videos making that particular point, but even if you didn't want to bother trying to justify using comic characters or Sonic Chronicles or whatever, Knuckles proved to be this wonderful source of world building for this franchise. There's still more to glean from the Master Emerald or the Echidna tribe or their connection to Chaos. I mean, heck, the Master Emerald was around even though the Chaos Emeralds are now alien apparently. The Ancients are now involved. Explore that a bit more. There is a reason why Ken Penders wanted to build so much out of this one guy. Even if you disregarded everything from the satellite material, Knuckles is fertile ground for storytelling and, more importantly, for gameplay. For crying out loud, every open world game now comes with a glider. It's a big stinky deal when Link can climb up the side of a mountain. Knuckles can do all of these things. And I don't care if the monkey's now punching in the dirt. Red Faction was doing that over 20 years ago. Just steal it. Just make a brilliant game. You got it all right there. Doesn't matter if you're borrowing ideas from other games. Knuckles got some legacy. It's gonna be fine. Make us a Knuckles game, for the love of God. So there you go, folks. Use DK Bonanza as a jumping off point in terms terms of gameplay mechanics, and that all expanded into storytelling potential. There's so much you can do with Knuckles. His name alone will sell a game. I promise it'll do better when it's not stuck on an obscure attachment to a Sega console. And what do you guys think? Did you have fun with this little thought experiment? I kinda like this format. What Sega should steal from other games. Kinda wanna do this for other characters. Time to give Tails Adventure another look, I think. Maybe it could use a Metroidvania update, or steal the hammer mechanics from Fortnite for Amy. Maybe we go back and play Psyops to get some ideas for a silver game. Heck, I'm sure we could make an amazing game for Big the Cat. They keep making fishing games for some damn reason. There's gotta be something there. I wanna hear your fan projects. I wanna hear your favorite ideas for a Knuckles game, where you'd like to see Shadow go. Heck, how you'd bring back the Freedom Fighters and justify their existence gameplay-wise, or any Sonic character. This was a lot of fun to sit down and think about, and I would like to do more of that. So if that's up your alley, let me know. But until then, thank you so much for sticking around. We'll get back to the comics, and I promise it's been long overdue. We're getting back to game reviews. All that's coming up soon. And an extra special thank you to the folks who are keeping me alive. I know it's been a while since I put out a video. If you want to support the channel, I'm going to be releasing some exclusive stuff for patrons over on Patreon. We hang out in the Discord. I sometimes pitch some fun ideas there. It's a good time. But until then, I have to give an extra special thank you to these fine folks here. Cyrus the Skeptic, David 20 Covers. Oh man, Josh. Yeah, I'm going to message you back soon. I've not figured out why your name's not showing up anymore, but I'll figure that out. Anyway, Singer J199, Tiny Jericho, Cecil the Glade, Josh Strider, The Bad Pal, and Mr. SP, Stefan Plakanica, Jack of All Spades, Meekers, Bo Bennings, Graham J. Hall, Ginger Bob, Fish Flop, Sam Webster, Miles the Prower, Lucas Lipker, Tristan Trapp, Lenny X, 3 Monic, Wayne is Boss, The Dark Neon, Trey Nobles, Trash Baphomet, Interjack 5, Twilord, Jonathan Dobbs, Ven 101. I'm just realizing these are not in the normal order they are, but whatever, we're gonna roll with it. Xerxes the Renegade Jin, quote, Resident Fanboy, Sindarin 7, Grayson Coniger, Crimson Rose, Roxas the Cat, Chad, Godzilla, Makuda of Salt, Alexander Watson, Neil Gampa, Conan Kudo, Daza S, Dwight Graham, The Lex, the most powerful ship in the 2 universes, Kaido Prower, Penn Adelaide, Spearmint, Silver the Lantern. Oh, that's clever. Oh, we're gonna get that new final issue soon. Oh, like tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that. Amu is not beating the Tails allegations. Gob, the RSI, just another evil robot clone seeking revenge. Did y'all see Metal Scott? How wild is that? Oh, I need to make a Metal Nick. Absolutely need to make a Metal Nick. Salem Hollow, Naburnyard, Siegfried Wilder, KV, Cho Henshin, one more Sonic robot, Charles the Green Dragon, Psychic Clips, My Great Rolls, Meow, Meowsh, David Slayer 05, Gideon Wells, Nyanza, Devil 115. Should have said and there. Usually I have to end with an and. Thanks, Devil. I can always rely on the devil. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me. And hey, Patreon supporters, I'm gonna be reconfiguring some of the perks because I don't really utilize the voting a whole lot, so we're gonna figure out something a little bit more fun. But yeah, you'll see all that soon enough. But until then, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I will catch you guys later. Toot toot, DK crew.